and will be presented by Biren Singh. Today's webinar will be recorded and available for viewing by members on the ODTUG website. Please place your questions in the questions box at any time during the presentation, and they will be addressed during the Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. Welcome, Biren, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Brittany, for the introduction. Once again, my name is Biren Singh. I am a senior EPM architect here at Datavale, and I'm very happy to be here to sharing some of my experience with the REST API that is available for us to use in different scenarios. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, depending on where you are at. All right, I'm going to proceed now. So the title, Can't Rest Without Rest, right? So there are just too many opportunities for us to use REST API, and it opens up a lot of things that we can do, especially around automating the process. Of course, it comes with its own error handling and proper notification opportunities that we can use in our automated jobs. Okay, few items here. If you could complete your session evaluation after the presentation and provide your valuable feedback, and we have a giveaway here, a mini projector. I haven't personally used it, but it's a very good one. A lot of good reviews. So this is something for you for providing feedback to us. A quick overview on the company. I'm not going to spend too much time here. We are a 360 partner, including EPM, along with ERP and other Oracle products. The services that we provide are listed here. I'll let you read later on, but we provide the consulting services around the EPM space, and that's the practice I belong to. And we also provide managed services around other products. Okay. All right, a little bit of a background on myself here. I'm not gonna read through this, but I have started my career in the Hyperion space back in 2008 by joining Hyperion company itself as a data integration consultant. And since then, I have been in this space, even though I went to a few other areas through my career. But my primary focus has always been in the BI architecture, data modeling, data integration, along with Hyperion applications. Through my career, I have been certified in S-based consultant at some point, and now I focus primarily on the planning and budgeting space, and I'm a certified planning consultant. And data integration has always been my focus and one of my greatest interests of areas, and it's just exciting to me. And if you want to get connected with me in LinkedIn, I have provided the link here on the slide, which we will be sharing later on after the presentation. Okay, just a little bit of a history on the data integration in the Hyperion space. When I joined Hyperion, I started with a tool called HAL. I don't know how many of you have been in this space. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. It stands for Hyperion Application Link, and was a very, very good tool and graphical interface with adapters to talk to the Hyperion software, so that the tool sets. And then after the Oracle acquisition, the slide could be rearranged a little bit here, but if you go down, the Informatica came into play, right, and then that sort of phased out. It didn't do what it's expected to do at that point, and the ODI came into picture, and behind the scene, the FDME, Financial Data Management Enterprise Edition, which is formerly known as Upstream, is now a data management and an integration tool, which has ODI as a backbone, right? And that is primarily for the on-prem application, and we still use it. But now with the cloud wave, data management is the cloud version of the FDME, which did lose some of the scripting capabilities that we had in FDMEE, right? And there were some challenges as we shifted to the cloud environment. And that's what I'm going to talk about as to what were some of the challenges I experienced as a data integration consultant, and how the REST API opened up that door for me. Okay. All right. So around these current tools, FDMEE, again, it's an on-prem version of the data integration tool that comes with the Hyperion suite, right? And it allows many scripting capabilities, including custom functionalities, to facilitate the automated design, right? To run that in a schedule, provide the logs, the error handling, and some notification, and whatever not, right? And as it's an on-prem tool, depending on the client, of course, we even had opportunity to tap into the backend repository of FDMEE to do our automation, sort of, right? To look into the tables for the status of the job, and look at the errors and whatnot. So we could do a lot of things using FDMEE and its backend repository to get to that level of automation the client desired. Now with the data management, most of the functionality is similar to FDME, right? But it lost the capability of those coding opportunities that the FDME provided, the custom scripting inside the tool and things of the nature. So when it comes to the automation, then the Oracle opened up API, the EPM Automate tool, right? Which is a command line utility, and it has a certain number of commands that you can use with some kind of scripting, batch scripting or shell scripting, PowerShell, and things of the nature, to use those commands and then do your automation around integration. But it came with certain limitations, right? To overcome those limitations, REST opened up the door for me, right? And some of you may have experienced that as well. So just a quick background on the APM Automate, of course, if you are new to it. It's a pretty easy tool to use, right? It exposes a bunch of commands. It's a command line utility, basically. But you need to download onto your machine or server, depending on the project you are working on. But EPM Automate is basically a wrapper around the REST API behind the scene. So it does call REST API behind the scene, but it's an easy to use interface for us as a consultant, as a programmer, to call those commands as needed, right? But it does require a wrapper program to automate it, like a batch script, shell script, PowerShell, whatever you might have used. Those could be used to call these APM Automate commands to do your automation. One catch here is usually it just returns success or the failure message, or the success and the failure status out of that command. If it fails, great. If it fails, it gives you a value. If it runs successfully, it gives you a value, right? That's all we can track. So it doesn't tell us why it failed. So that is one limitation that drove me towards exploring REST API, because usually in our implementations, the client would like to know why it failed, and if it has failed, okay, show me the log, so that I can analyze as an admin and figure out the issue and fix it as needed, right? So that is what opened up my exposure to REST API. In the REST API, just a little background here, it stands for Representational State Transfer API. And the REST APIs allows a lot of the administrative tasks that you can perform within the APM space, right? But it's pretty generic. It's not specific to just Oracle Hyperion, tool sets. So one of the main benefits is that it relies on the HTTP standard, so that it's not dependent on a certain format. And you can use XML, JSON, HTML, etc., different formats to deliver data or exchange data, right? But I will be focusing on the JSON, the format in this presentation, and that's what I usually use in my integrations. But you can use other formats like HTML and the XML as well. So that's why this REST API, it makes it much more flexible, fast, and lightweight, right? So the JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, is a very compact data format, and it's very easy to parse. It comes in a data value pair, right? And it's fairly easy to work with, so that when you call the REST API command, even the status or the progress or whatever, it returns back to you. It comes in the name value pair, and programmatically you can parse through that very easily, and then generate your required notification and things of the nature, obviously based on the project requirement, right? How detailed you want. So so the REST, also some people call it RESTful as well, was initially created as a guideline to manage communication between different web services within the complex network, for example, internet, right? And that's where the cloud comes into play. So it makes things so much easier to communicate directly with our Hyperion applications through REST API calls. Okay. And by the way, I'm not a REST expert, but I just wanted to relay some of the advantages that REST API offers to you, right? So the REST API obviously is a client server independent, so that's why it makes it much more flexible to work with web services, and then work on different areas of the projects, right? Depending, and you can work with multiple environments as well. And there are a few other benefits that I have outlined here. Obviously, you can read it and get into detail, do some research. But the REST API have a benefit of scalability and flexibility as well, right? And one other thing is it's easier to work with, or if you're new to REST API, it's not a difficult programming interface to learn. Okay, so the REST API is widely used in many applications and development environments besides Oracle EPM. As I said, it's pretty generic. It supports a lot of different data exchange formats, XML, HTML, which are very, very common in web services world. Okay, so now to call the REST API, right? Again, it's similar to that concept of API automate. So it exposes a bunch of commands to interface with our EPM applications. But you need some kind of a wrapper or a wrapper in a programming tool to be able to call those and then automate based on the business logic that you're trying to achieve. Okay, there are so many opportunities. Again, you can use other different languages for programming your automation. But here, personally, I'm going after Python. Again, this is nothing to do with saying that the Python is the way to go. I'm not trying to sell it, but Python is the one I usually use in my integration. It's a very easy to use tool. It's easily readable, again, and easy to learn as well, right? With some of the programming background that I have from my master's in computer science and some working in other programming languages, Python is fairly easy to pick up. Okay, and it has a wide range of support modules, and can be easily integrated in with many tool sets like web services. And Python is an interpreted language. It's not a compiled language like Java. So working with it, writing the code, and debugging and testing is fairly easy, right? Um, so that's one of the reasons I just picked up Python. It has a lot of flexibility, and the writing of the code is very similar to some of the other languages like C, C++, Java. Is sort of the programming constructs are very common and easy to use. If you have done bash programming, you know how challenging that is, right? So it's fairly easy to learn and test and debug, as I mentioned. Okay, and that's the reason I'm using Python. There are a few other benefits of Python that that's the reason I'm using it again. So it's easy for learning for the new people, and it works great with the REST API calls. And that's why I picked up Python instead of Java and other languages. As you guys may be familiar, Java has its own challenges and it's a little bit more involved, right? And it is cost effective too, right? It's a freeware, and for a quick data management automation, this is a fairly easy open source tool that's available for us to use. And Python, as a here that it is actually picking up quite a bit in the programming space as a one of the go-to programming languages. Okay, just a quick popularity index for you as a reference. I'm not going to go into detail. All right. Now, how do we write the code, or how do we, program our automation, right? I just simply use text editor, to be honest. I just go to Notepad++, write it, save it as a Python file, and then from the command prompt, I can just simply call that file. It just runs like a bash file, right? Fairly easy, but there are a lot of IDEs available for you to use. I've listed some of the popular ones that I found out there. I haven't tried any one of these particularly, so I cannot speak on, which one is better, which one is easier. But there are some freewares available as well if you prefer IDEs, right? But for me, again, I'm still using text editor. It's fairly easy. Write it, put some bunch of sort of debugging steps. I usually use the print command and then print different statuses, where I'm at in my program, different stages, and it has been fairly easy to use. Okay. Now, we talked about a difference between, or the limitation on APM Automate and how REST API, opens up the door for us, right? But some of the generic, REST API advantages as a whole is it is a programming language agnostic. I am using Python, but you guys can use Java, C++, .NET, whatever might be the case, and you can definitely incorporate REST API calls, right? And nowadays the Ruby can use it. We can call REST APIs within planning application, for example, within the calc rules and things of that nature. So it has opened up that flexibility for us as a consultant to provide a proper solution. So I'll be talking about, actually one of the recent use case that I came across along with the data management stuff, right? And as I said, REST API can use the high-level programming languages like Java, Groovy, and that can handle JSON responses along with XML and HTML if you prefer to go that way. But again, I'm looking into JSON responses. It's fairly easy to use, right? So REST API is a form of web services, and you need to use some hypertext transfer method to send and receive data. So when you send and receive data using REST API, again, the data is the communication or the response comes to you in a certain standard formats, right? Um, and JSON is fairly similar to XML, sorry, pretty similar to XML, and the data is very structured. Again, it's in the name value pair, and it's very easy to parse through. And the REST API guide on our Oracle APM applications um, is out there. It's fairly easy to follow again. And in that document also, JSON structure is what's been used as a format to follow. And REST API JSON response will contain all the details of the operation, including status, error messages, and all the good stuff, right? And usually in the EPM space, the 200 is a success code, but it has a whole bunch of list of codes in the documentation that you can look up that sort of tells you, what came back to you as a response, right? Even if it's a failure, it tries to tell you what kind of failure are those. Maybe you have to go beyond that depending on your requirement to look into the log or provide the log, test the log, whatever might be the case. But it at least gives you rather than just 0 and 1 for failure and success, it actually tells you what kind of error you are getting back. So that allows you to take that automation to a next level, and also helps the admins to debug the issues, right? So that is the reason it has better and flexible error handling for you to use. And it's a module programming, makes it suitable for flexible solutioning. It's just a general statement there. All right, so the as over EPM automate. I did talk about some of these already, but just to go through this slide real quick. Again, EPM automate is a fairly easy to use command line utility, but it has a limited set of commands, and REST API is actually running in the background. It's just a wrapper on top of that, right? So whatever set of commands that we have available, and that's all we can do. But with the REST API, it allows us to dig in a little bit more, right? Tap into more resources or more set of commands, so that you can elaborate your automation process, and you also have a flexibility to use different languages, right? To interact with the REST API calls. Okay, and so as I said, EPM Automate is a Java-based tool with the REST API calls behind the scene, and but with the REST API interface, you have more capabilities, more opportunities for automation. So the last bullet here says that yes, REST APIs requires considerable technical and functional expertise. Obviously, we need to be aware of the EPM toolset's functionalities in detail to be able to take advantage of it, right? There are a lot of admin tasks kind of thing you can do. You can even do master data management within your application. I don't know if you would need to go that far or not. My focus in this presentation is basically around data management, right? But if you know the application or the tool set you're dealing with, if you're more familiar with it, you can achieve more out of this REST API, that has opened up a lot of opportunities for you to automate if needed or desired. Okay. Again, you do need to be familiar with the JSON response, how it is structured, and how you can parse through that and how you make sense out of it, right? But as far as the programming language that you use to interact with the EPM automate, REST API, the interface and the commands, you have flexibility for using different type of languages. Okay. Again, um, my preference has been Python so far. Okay. So one of the use cases that primarily drove me towards REST API is that so in EPBCS world, right, planning and budgeting, run a business rule or data load rule, right, and then retrieve the status of that process, whether it's success, error, warning, etc. Right? It's not just success and failure. I want to know what happened. And then obviously sending email is a very common requirement out there, and EPM Automate has that too. But the problem is, how do I tell the EPBCS or the EPM admins that what happened, right? And if there were errors or even warnings, what are those? So obviously, if you see that the data management load will fail, as an admin, you can always go there and analyze which process failed, download the log. I mean, you can do that, of course, right? But it's all about automation, how we can make the admin's job easier in our implementation, right? And also process in a multiple requests asynchronously, and or both ways. But so those are some of the challenges that I faced in my implementation, my projects, and that drove me towards the REST API, right? To overcome that limitations of what EPM Automate offers to us. So one quick example here is simply an email message, right? Again, as I mentioned, we could have done this using EPM Automate to generate an email. But the catch here is, how do I attach the log of that process? How do I find out that log? I've seen some creative work done in the APM automated space as well, that you can download all the log files, right? It doesn't allow. I wouldn't know which log file to download, but you can download all of them, parse through them, maybe pick up the latest one. I mean, I've seen people or our consultants do different things out there, but it has limitations, as you can understand, right? So, but with the REST API call, I can specifically pinpoint, hey, what is my process that is running? Grab the ID, I can go find that particular log in the backend, of course, and then I can download programmatically, attach to the email, and then send it out to the admins, right? So this is one example of how the notification could be generated. And as you can see, here is a log file that is attached from the data management process. Okay. And success email here, see, I mean, programmatically, I can get each and every steps of my process. Again, Python opens up that flexibility of the high level programming, flexibility, right? Even though it's not it's only a interpreted language, it still offers that wide range of programming capabilities. So this is simply an example of a success email with all my steps, the logs, the time it took, and whatnot. You can get as fancy as depending on your creativity and what the project requires, right? But this is an example of something you can do fairly easily. And again, the big thing for me was that previous email where I actually could attach the log file from data management. Okay. All right. This example that I have included here is a very interesting one, actually. And the data integration requirement was quite complex. This company had 12 different fiscal years, depending on their branches and their locations, right? And then they had primary and the secondary ledger in the ERP, and we had to get the data from the ERP, from those different ledgers, and also translate that into that proper fiscal periods or the fiscal calendar they had, and then load the data properly for the reporting and budgeting, right? And And one thing we had to do was also load data to ASO. And this is one example I wanted to show you here. So basically, we had to clear the data in ASO before we bring the new data set, right, on a regular basis, to avoid that dirty data issue. Just like in VSOQ too, we usually run the clear and then load the data, we aggregate, like a typical process that we usually go through in many of our projects. So now, how do I clear the data, right, in ASO? So it's kind of challenging to do, because you have to pass that MDX parameter based on what you're trying to clear, right? Now, the REST API opened up that door for me, right? So I can run a job in EPM or EPBCS, I should say, in this particular case. And then as you can see here, I create this parameter, again, in the JSON format, right? It's a name value pair, as you can see here. So the job type is what is the name of the job, sorry, the type of the job, and the job name is, that is the job I created, and these are the parameters I want to pass, and I can pass the MDX query as a parameter, right? Again, these are all in the name value pair, as you can see. And then I can build the MDX dynamically in my Python code. Again, as you can see here, the way you write the code in Python is fairly easy to read, right? It's very similar to some of the other languages you might have programmed in, like a for loop or if then else, right? Very common constructs and very easy to read and write and debug as well. But the meat of the code is where I have this rectangle here, is where I'm actually forming the JSON parameter set here to pass to my call, right? And then after the parameter is passed, you call the REST API, and then you check the job status, right? Now, I have created some utilities, like run the job, get the job status, so that I can reuse this piece of code, right? So the Python, again, one of the advantages is very modular. You can create your own set of utility commands, and these are some of the two examples that I have in here. So one is to run the job. So I pass that job, that construct from the previous screen, right? So this is the definition of my job. What is the type of the job? What is the name of the job? And what are the parameters? So once I define this job, I have to make a call, REST API call, to run that job, right? And usually retrieve is get, and if you want to run or submit something, that would be a post command, right? Very generic. Again, you can read up the Oracle documentation as well. Everything is explained in detail, but I'm just trying to show you an actual code example. So to run that job, what I do is I'm just passing these parameters. The job is that definition I showed you earlier. Headers contains the credential, right? So you can encrypt that credential and pass as a header, so that, and then obviously URL is URL of your EPM instance, right? So I'm passing 3 parameters here to this subroutine, so to say, or a function, whatever you want to call it. And then I make this, REST API call using a post command, passing that URL, of course, and then some other, details needed. Again, it's all documented, and that JSON construct of the job definition, right? I pass that, and the headers is the credential. So just for the flexibility. Again, you can write this in so many different ways, right? But this is just an example to explain. So now I can pass those and make that call, and then I can print the response, right? That response that comes out of the API call. Then it also comes back to you in the JSON format. So you can actually parse that key value pair here, or name value pair, or key value pair, whatever you want to call it. Then I can parse through that and then figure out which particular the name value pair you're interested in, right? And that's all I'm doing here. So I'm parsing through the response. It comes with a whole bunch of things, and then you can parse through that very easily, and then gather what you need, the status you need, the error you need, and you can have the very fancy exception handling, right? Something like in Java, you can do in Java you have a try catch block. Similarly here you have a try and except block. You can use this and take it to a completely new level of automation as you desire, right? Do you have to do it? No, right? Depends on what you like to do and what the project calls for. But again, this is an example. This is the kind of construct I've been using in my implementations. So sorry, oops. Okay, so that is to run the job, right? Can you write all of these in one page, a long page? Of course you can, right? But I just decided to make it a function out of it so that I can reutilize my utility type of tool sets or the code set for my projects. So all I have to do is just pass the URL for my new client, my credential, and the job depending on what I'm trying to run, and then this routine is already there for me to run that. Okay, and the next, oh, sorry, I keep on using my roller in the mouse. Get job status, which is very important, right? And that is what, again, was the sticking point for me that drove me to the REST API programming world. So you can actually get the status of that job. You just submit it to run, right? And you can check it with I have a sleep of 2 seconds here. It's up to you. You can, depending on the how long the job takes, you can change the timer. I'm constantly checking every 2 seconds what's the status, right? So if there is a status of success, great. I send that email that I showed you earlier. If there is a failure, I will send the email with the log attached, because now I know exactly which job ID that is running in this particular call, so that I can very easily go grab the log file, right? So I don't have to download everything and then go through it. So I can specifically get that log file and send it out to the admins. Okay, so that is one big flexible opportunity that we have here. All right. So this is the one of the use cases that again has driven me to the REST API calls and the programming, and then make the automation much more flexible. Recently, again, I didn't write everything on my own. I found it in the web. A lot of people are doing this. Actually, I found similar code in the Oracle site as well, in their examples and the demos. Very similar code construct. So the use case here is that this client needed a very complex allocation process where, for a certain dollar amount, I had to allocate by different dimensions: entity, department, location, and different percentages by periods. So it was a complex scenario in how many allocations, and you can have multiple allocations for that. So in that case, what I had to do, or to come up with a solution, is to translate that the allocations and send the data back to ASO cube to translate that, and then again map it back to the actual accounts, not the allocation accounts, and then bring it back to the finance cube, right? And I'm pretty sure it's not new to many of you guys, and I've done this in so many different ways in the past too, right? But now all these tool sets, now with the Groovy, open up the Groovy, right, in the Enterprise Edition, and the REST API made the job so much easier, so that data translation and data transfer didn't have to depend on the admins, right? So now I wanted to provide that functionality to the users themselves, right? The cost center planners. so that they can run their piece of integration and then get the data immediately in the finance queue for their review and all that, right? So the uh, the core of that whole process is shortly is to bring the data from ASO queue to the BSO queue. So obviously I created a data management rule. There were, you can use XREF and XWrite and whatever not, but it has its own challenges per se, right? The block creation issues. Some of you may be familiar with it. So to overcome those issues, I'm like, okay, let me just use the data management rule, bring from ASO to BSO, piece of cake, no big deal, right? There's no challenges with the data, block issues or anything. But the question is, how do I do that so that the users can run it without depending on the admin or somebody else running the data management rule, or training the users to actually go to data management, run the rule for their cost center, right? And another thing is, even to do that, well, you have to pass a filter, right, for that particular cost center. Now, they have 165 cost centers. So do I want to create 165 load rules for each cost center? Maybe not, right? Can you? Of course you can. It works great. But I don't want to do that. Now, if you look at this code construct here, I'm simply calling the REST API from the Groovy inside the application in the Calc Manager itself, right? So this is a rule, and this is a Groovy rule. The screen is chopped up on the right-hand side here. It's a Groovy type of rule. Again, I copied this code that's out there. Nothing magical here. The sorry. The first portion of this await completion is simply checking the status, right? Every 5 seconds, whether the job is done or not, right? And then what I'm doing here, this is the interesting part for me. So you are actually, sorry, over here from line 27. So you are actually grabbing that cost center from the form itself, right? So I am a cost center manager. I have responsibility or access for just that cost center. Or if I have multiple, I can change them. But I want to run that data management rule only for that cost center, right? So now I'm grabbing that cost center from the grid or from the POV of the form, right? And then I build the filter. And this, if you're familiar with the data management, this is the dimension name, and then you pass the filter hard coded in the filter, right? But here I'm dynamically passing that current cost center that is in the POV that is selected. Now, if you come down here, the same JSON construct here, right? So the name value pair. So I'm saying job type is integration. Job name means this is the ASO to BSO, workforce planning data. And the period name, we need to make this dynamic, of course, depending on the plan year. But right now, just to show you an example, I have a hard-coded January to December load, and it's in replace, store data, import export mode. You're familiar with it. And the key here is the source filter. See, I can pass this filter dynamically as I run this rule into the data management process or the data load rule dynamically, right? So that is how the title of this presentation came about, right? The REST has opened up a lot of flexibility for us as consultants and the solution implementers. And then again, I just call this push data is just a variable to grab the status. And then await completion is the function up here, which simply passes your construct, right? The connection name, then the operations as different parameters here. So I'm simply passing this JSON response down here. Actually, it's a parameter. Maybe the variable name could be better. But that response I'm passing in here on the top function as a JSON response construct, and it just calls that post. Okay, so again, this is very exciting for me. Maybe some of you are already familiar, but this is something I recently had to do, and it just works like a charm. Okay, And error handling, again, I want to emphasize that you can take it completely a different level based on your creativity, based on your programming knowledge, and how far you want to take it, right? Um, we don't have all the time in the world to interpret every log item, send it in the email. But some clients may require that. Some clients may be just happy with, hey, just give me the log file. I'm an admin. I know how to read the log, and I'll go from there, right? So it really depends on the requirement and how fancy you want to get, but you can get fancy with all the error codes that REST API provides, and obviously with your programming experience. Okay, so these are the two use cases I wanted to highlight. And as I said, you can do a lot of other admin type of things as well. And one thing I have actually already done here, just to give you a quick tip here, is see these period names. Actually, you can get it from the substitution variable using the code. Very easy, 2 lines of code. You get the substitution variable. You programmatically make it a string that you need and pass it here. That's all. Right? And so it makes your solution so dynamic and easy to use. And probably, once you write it, you may not have to touch it. It works. All right. I don't have that example here, but you can use that get subvar REST API call to get the substitution variable. Once again, we would greatly appreciate your evaluation and feedback, for me, for the future presentations. That allocation is something, if you guys are interested, ping me. Something I'm thinking of creating a presentation on that. Nothing new. A lot of people have done it, but just wanted to share what I have gone through. And again, for that evaluation and the feedback, we have this little projector as a present. So please take advantage of this while providing us, your feedback. Okay. Brittany, how are we doing with the time here?
Time is looking good. So if anyone has any questions that they'd like you to answer, now will be the time to put them into the questions box. We'll allow just a minute or so for that.
Sure.
Okay. Looks like there might not be any questions right now, but questions are welcomed post-webinar as well, if you guys have any questions for afterward. We want to thank Baron for being here and for sharing his wealth of knowledge with us. And if that is all, Baron, if you don't have any more announcements or anything else to share, then we will go ahead and end the webinar. We thank everyone for being here. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, this will be recorded and available for members on the website later today.
Yep. And my contact is right on the screen. That's my email and my phone number. If you guys have any interest to go into a little bit more detail as to what I have done in my implementation, and if there's any way I can help point you to the right direction, would be my pleasure. So the contact information is here. Again, on the second page, I believe I have my LinkedIn details as well. So you can get connected.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Brittany.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.